the 25th of July, 1900, Volume 3. There is no cruelty at all in Jesus. Everything is love. This morning my adorable Jesus came and made me see a machine in which it seemed that many human members were being crushed, as well as something like 2 signs of chastisements in the air, chastisements that struck terror. Who can say the consternation of my heart in seeing all this? But blessed Jesus, seeing me so embittered, told me, "My daughter, let us move what so much afflicts us away from us for a little bit, and let us cheer each other by playing together for a little while." Who can say what passed between Jesus and me in this game? The finesses of love, the stratagems, the kisses and the caresses that we gave each other. However, my beloved Jesus surpassed me because, being very weak, I would faint, so much so that I, unable to contain within myself what he was giving me, I said, "My beloved, enough, enough, for I can take no more, I faint. My poor heart is not so large as to be capable of receiving so much. So enough for now." Then, wanting to scold me because of my speaking of the other day, sweetly he said to me, "Let me hear your complaints. Tell me. Am I cruel? Has my love changed into cruelty for you?" And I, all blushing, said, "No, Lord, you are not cruel when you come. But when you do not come, then I will say that you are cruel." Smiling at my words, he added, "You still keep saying that I am cruel when I do not come. No, there can be no cruelty at all in me. Everything is love. And know that if it is as you say, my very being cruel is greater love." End of the reading.
25th of July, 1915, Volume 11. Jesus feels unfortunate in the misfortunes of creatures and even more in love. He wants with him souls who may comfort him. Continuing in my usual state, I was lamenting with Jesus because of his usual privations, and he, always kind, sympathized with me, telling me, "My daughter, be brave. Be faithful to me in these times of tragedies, of horrendous carnage, and of intense bitterness for my heart." Almost sobbing, he added, "My daughter, in these times I feel like a poor unfortunate. I feel unfortunate together with the one who is wounded on the battlefield. Unfortunate for the one who dies in his own blood, abandoned by everybody. Unfortunate with the poor who feels the weight of his hunger. I feel the misfortune of many mothers whose hearts bleed for their sons in battle. All misfortunes weigh upon my heart, and I remain transfixed. And in the face of all these miseries, I see the divine justice which wants to put more divine fury on the field against creatures, unfortunately rebellious and ungrateful. Further, who can tell you how unfortunate I am in love? Creatures don't love me, and my great love is repaid with repeated offences. My daughter, in the midst of so many misfortunes, instead of consoling others, I want to be comforted. I want around me the souls who love me, who keep me faithful company, and who offer all their pains as a relief for my misfortunes and in order to plead grace for the poor unfortunate ones. Depending on whether the souls are faithful to me in these times of scourges and misfortunes, when divine justice will be appeased, it will reward the souls who remained faithful to me and who took part in my misfortunes. End of the reading.
The 25th of July, 1917, Volume 12. Jesus purifies the soul to admit her to live in his will. Continuing in my usual state, I was lamenting to Jesus, and I also prayed him to put an end to the many chastisements. And Jesus told me, "My daughter, why do you lament? This is nothing yet. The great chastisements will come. The creature has rendered herself unbearable. Under the blows, she rebels even more, and she does not even want to recognize my hand that strikes her. I have no other means to use other than to exterminate her. In this way, I will be able to remove many lies which infect the earth and kill my growing generation. So do not expect an end for now, but rather more and worse troubles. There will not be a place on earth which will not be soaked in blood." On hearing this, I felt my heart being lacerated, and Jesus, wanting to cheer me, told me, "My daughter, come into my will to do what I do. In my will, you will be able to run for the good of all creatures, and by the power of my volition, you will be able to rescue them from within the blood in which they are swimming, so as to bring them back to me, washed with their own blood, with the touch of my will." And I, "My life, I am so bad. How can I do this?" And he, "You must know that the most noble, the most sublime, the greatest and most heroic act is to do my will and to operate in my volition. At this act, which no one else can equal, I display the pomp of all my love and generosity. As soon as the soul decides to do it, in the act in which the two wills meet to be fused into each other and become one, to give her the honour of keeping her in my volition, if she is stained, I purify her. If the thorns of human nature envelop her, I shatter them. And if some nail pierces her, that is sin, I pulverize it, because nothing evil can enter my will. Even more, all my attributes invest her, turning her weakness into fortitude, ignorance into wisdom, misery into richness, and so with all the rest. Something from herself always remains in other acts, but in these she remains completely stripped of herself, and I feel her completely with me. End of the reading.
25th of July, 1924, Volume 17. Sanctity is not formed by one single act. The sanctity in the divine will must be a continuous act. This morning, my sweet Jesus made himself seen in my interior in the act of stretching his arms in the shape of the cross, and I remained stretched together with him. Then he said to me, "My daughter, the last act of my life was to lay myself on the cross and to stay there until I died, with my arms opened, unable to move or to oppose what they wanted to do to me. I was the true portrait, the true image of one who lives not in the human will, but in the divine. Being unable to move, having lost every right over myself, the horrible tension of my arms, how many things they said. And while I was losing my rights, the others acquired my life. The first right was of the supreme will, which, using its immensity and all-seeingness, gathered all souls, innocent and penitent sinners, good and contrite, wicked, and placed them in my stretched arms so that I might bring them to heaven, and I refused no one. So the divine will gave a place to everyone in my arms. The supreme will is a continuous act which is never interrupted, and what it does once, it never ceases. And although my humanity is in heaven and is not subject to suffering, I go in search of souls who act not in the human will, but in the divine, and who oppose nothing. Souls who lose each one of their rights, so that leaving all of their rights at the mercy of my will may continue its act of placing all souls, sinners and saints, innocent and evil, in the arms of those who offer to lay themselves in my will, in order to repeat and continue what my arms did, stretched on the cross. This is why I laid myself within you, so that the supreme will may continue its act of bringing all into my arms. Sanctity is not formed of one single act, but of many acts united together. One single act forms neither sanctity nor perversity, because since the continuation of acts is missing, the colours and the true shades of sanctity are missing. And since these are missing, one cannot attribute a weight or a just value to either sanctity or perversity. Therefore, what makes sanctity shine forth and places the seal on it are continuous good acts. No one can say he is rich because he possesses a coin, but rather those who possess extensive properties, villas, palaces, etc. So it is for sanctity. And if sanctity needs many good acts, sacrifices, heroism, it can also be subject to gaps, to intervals. The sanctity in my will is not subject to intermittent phases, but it comes to be associated to that continuous act of the eternal will, which never, never ceases, but is always acting, always operating, always triumphant. It always loves and never stops. Therefore, the sanctity in my will brings into the soul the mark of the works of her Creator, that is, his continuous love, the continuous preservation of all the things created by him. It never changes and is immutable. One who is subject to change belongs to the earth, not to heaven. Changing is of the human will, not of the divine. Interrupting good is of the creature, not of the Creator. Therefore, all this would be unbefitting for the sanctity of living in my will, because it contains the uniform, the image of the sanctity of her Creator. Therefore, be attentive, leave all rights to the supreme will, and I will keep forming in you the sanctity of living in my will. End of the reading.
The 25th of July, 1937, Volume 34. How one act in the divine volition can be an impetuous wind, an air, a celestial atmosphere. 3 circles. God, if he loves, he operates. If he speaks, he gives. The sea of the volition always murmurs, and many times it forms its impetuous waves in order to assail the creatures, in order to envelop them in its loving waves, in order to give them its life, but with such insistences and loving astuteness, as if it had need of us, poor creatures, that one remains amazed. Oh, how true it is that God alone knows how to love us. Now, while my mind was lost in this sea, my sweet Jesus, surprising me with his brief little visit, told me, "Blessed daughter of my volition, have you seen how sweet was the murmur of the sea of my will? And also the souls who live in it do nothing other than murmur together in this sea. They, perfect echo of my fiat, never cease murmuring love, glory, adoration, but in a simple way. If they breathe, they murmur love. If they palpitate, if the blood circulates in their veins, if they think, if they move, in everything, they murmur love, love, glory to our Creator. And if they call my will in their acts, they form the impetuous waves in order to envelop God and creatures, so that everyone, heaven and earth, make one single will. One act in my will can be an impetuous wind, as to transport, to eradicate with its strength the passions, the weaknesses, the bad habits, the putrid air of sin, and to substitute for them the virtues, the divine strength, the holy habits, the sanctifying air of my will. One act in my volition can be a universal air that, penetrating everywhere and in everyone, by night and by day, can make itself breathed in order to infuse its life, its sanctity, and removing the unhealthy air of the human volition substitutes there the healthy air of my fiat, in a way as to remain sweetened, embalmed, vivified, healed by this divine air. One act in my fiat can be a celestial atmosphere that encloses in itself all our works, the creation itself, and with the strength of our works assails our divinity and imposes itself over us, so as to make us give graces and gifts, as to render the creatures capable of being able to receive the kingdom of our volition. One act of our will can contain such marvels that the creature is incapable of being able to contain all its value. Jesus became silent, and I remained as drenched in this sea. And I do not know how, I felt myself transported into the celestial fatherland. In the middle of 3 circles of light. At the head of them, there was the Queen of Heaven at one point, and our Lord at another, with an enchanting beauty and indescribable love. In the midst of them, there was a multitude of souls completely transformed in the light in which they lived and grew, but guarded, directed, and nourished by Jesus and by the Celestial Mother. How many beautiful surprises were seen! These souls possessed the likeness and the life of their Creator. And my sweet Jesus and his mother told me, these circles of light that you see are symbol of the sacrosanct Trinity, and the souls are those who will form the kingdom of the divine will. This kingdom will be formed in the bosom of the divinity. The rulers of this kingdom will be the mother and son who will guard it with jealousy. See, therefore, the certainty of this kingdom. It is already formed, because in God things are as already done. Therefore, pray that what is in heaven is realized on earth. After this, I found myself in myself, with the highest sorrow, finding myself again in my poor prison of my body. After this, my highest good, Jesus, all goodness, told me, my daughter, our divine being is all love, and so much is this love that we feel the need of putting forth from us this love, nor do we pay attention to if the creature merits it or not. If we had wanted to pay attention to the merit, the whole creation would still remain in our bosom. When we love, we operate. Indeed, we loved and we created the creation, and as gift of our liberality and of the excess of our operating love, we made a gift of it to man. We do not like to give our gifts as payment or as merit, and where would one find sufficient money in order to pay us for our gifts, or so many acts in order to merit them? It would hinder our love, repressing it in us, and to not give anything to the creature, and not even to love her, because if we love, we must operate and give. Our Supreme Being very often finds itself in such deliriums of love that we feel the need of putting forth from our bosom gifts and graces in order to give them to the creatures. But in order to form these gifts, we must love and manifest them in order to make them known. Therefore, if we love, we operate. If we speak, our creative word consigns the gift, confirms it, and gifts the creature with our gifts. Our word is the bearer and places us in the conditions of pouring out our repressed love. But do you want to know why we do not give our gifts as payment or as merit? Because we give them to our children. And when gifts are given to the children, one does not pay attention to if they merit. One gives because they love each other. At the most, one makes it understood. Here is the necessity for the word, so that they appreciate them and guard them and love he who has given them and who loves them so much. On the other hand, one gives as payment or as merit to the servants, to foreigners, and without many measures. So in the excess of our love, without anyone praying to us or meriting, we made the creation in order to make a gift of it to man. In another excess, we created the Virgin in order to make a gift of her. In another excess, I, the eternal Word, descended from heaven in order to make a gift of myself and make myself the sweet prey of man. In another greater excess of love, I will give them a great gift of the kingdom of my volition. The celestial Virgin, heiress of this kingdom, will call creatures as her children, so that they receive her great inheritance as a gift. Now, my daughter, if the soul lets my divine will reign, her love will not be sterile any more, but fertile, nor will she reduce herself into only words, or even into works. She will feel in herself the creative strength of our love, will place herself in our same conditions, that if we love, we operate. If we operate, we give. But what thing do we give? The great gift of our divine being. Our love is so much that if we give, we want to give everything, even ourselves, to the mercy of the creature. Our love would not be content if it does not say, I have given everything, I have nothing more to give her. More so because possessing our will, we are secure. We are in our house with all the decorum, the honours, the decency that befits us. Therefore, possessing our creative fiat itself, if the creature loves us, in her love she will give us, in reciprocation for our gift, the gift of her life, such that it is life that we will give to each other. And every time that she will love us, our creative strength will multiply her life in order to give it to us as gift. Her love will not remain isolated, but with the fullness of its life, because she gives herself to the mercy of her Creator. And here, equalized the parts between Creator and creature, life she receives in gift and life she gives. And if the creature has her limits, my will makes up for her. Also because in giving us her life as gift, she gives us everything. Nothing remains for herself. So our love remains satisfied and reciprocated. Therefore, if you want to give us everything and receive everything from us, let our will reign in you, and everything will be granted to you. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.